Hi everyone, welcome to Business Legal Basics. My name is Joey Leek. I'm an attorney in Austin, Texas and a partner at Babb, Reed & Leek Law Firm. This is a course for entrepreneurs. It's a course for people who are thinking about starting a new business or have already started a new business and are thinking about getting their ducks in a row, taking it to the next level, getting their legal affairs in order. So who am I to be telling you these things? I'm a born and raised Texan. Moved to Austin for college, got elected twice, came back for law school, and I'm practicing law in Austin, Texas now. I started my career as a litigator. That is to say, I helped people who were involved in disputes with others, which means that I saw a lot of the ways that things go wrong. And at some point along the way, I said, well, maybe I should help people plan better to begin with to avoid things that go wrong later, and I became a business attorney. My practice focuses primarily on startups, entrepreneurs, small and mid-sized companies, all the way up to venture capital and private equity firms. So it gives me a good rounded perspective on what businesses need to think about at the beginning versus later, how things can go wrong, that type of thing. So with that, let's get started. Okay, so the primary goal today is to identify the legal needs of your new business, and you'll see that I've underlined the word needs there. And the reason that I've done that is because I have a lot of people that come to me, or I suspect that there are a lot of people that don't come to me, because they don't understand what they need versus what can wait. They're worried to talk to an attorney. They think it's going to be wildly expensive to get an attorney involved or to just get the basic legal needs of their business in order. So what we're trying to do today is help you understand what you need, what you don't need, what can wait till later, what you need to be thinking about. And so this lesson is going to help you understand a number of topics that could affect your new business. First of all, we're going to help you understand the right type of entity that you need, whether it's a partnership, limited liability company, corporation, S-corporation. A lot of people have questions around that type of thing. The second thing that's a major point of this episode is the documents you need now, the agreements you're going to have with your founders, the agreements you're going to have with your employees and contractors, those types of documents. The third is how to protect your business's assets and how to protect your business's intellectual property, the ideas that make your business unique and special. We'll then move on to how to deal with your employees and your contractors, how to distinguish between the two, how to contract with them. And then we're going to move on with how you're going to deal with your customers, the lifeblood of your business. How do you manage those relationships and what documents do you need? This is my favorite part about this episode. I'm going to explain to you why you need these things. A lot of people go to lawyers and lawyers recommend a lot of work. They say you need this, you need that, you need this, and there's rarely an explanation, or at least a good explanation, as to why do you need this. And so we're going to explain why you need these things and where you get these things. Can you do it yourself? Probably not. Do you need a lawyer? Great. Are there some alternatives out there? Yes, there are, but we're going to talk about them. So moving on, there's one thing I've got to say here, which is I've got to make my lawyer disclaimer, okay? The advice that I'm giving you is not one size fits all. None of what I'm going to say is going to apply to everybody. And everything that I say is not going to apply to each of you. There's going to be pieces that matter to you, pieces that don't. One size does not fit all here. Really importantly, I cannot summarize the law in a 1-hour slideshow. There are nuances to this. It's why people go to law school. It's why we have lawyers. I'm going to give you general information. And I'm going to do the best that I can to give you very clear guidance on where you need to go, but I can't summarize everything. The last thing is, my advice is for new companies, small companies, even up to early mid-sized companies. This is not advice for you if you are a multi-million-dollar corporation. You're probably not watching if that's what you are. Large companies have an enormous amount of issues they have to deal with. Small businesses, new businesses, we've got a road that we can put you on, and that's who this is for. So to summarize one more time, the topics we're going to go over are entity selection and how that can affect your taxes, the governance documents you need, the agreements you need with your partners and your employees, how to protect your IP, how to deal with employees and contractors, how to handle your customer relationships and your contracts with your customers. And then I'm going to give you some other things you need to be thinking about that is related to but not necessarily the law. And then finally, we're going to talk about where you get these things that you need. Do you use lawyers? Do you use an alternative? Okay, so first things first, you decided you want to start a new enterprise. You need to decide what type of entity you're going to conduct your business under. So first of all, let's talk about why you want a separate entity. So here are the things that separate entities provide you. It's sort of a cushion. Number one, it can give you tax benefits. If you treat your business the right way, you get with a good accountant, they can work with your taxes to save you some money that you might otherwise be giving away if you were self-employed. The second thing that's most important about having a separate entity is that it gives you liability protection, which is to say that if your business has debts and obligations that for some reason it can't pay or something bad happens, you're not on the hook. Your house isn't on the hook. Your car, your money is not on the hook. Your business is on the hook, and whatever assets your business owns. So you're protecting yourself personally. That way you can take these business risks and start a new entity and give it the old college try, so to speak. The third reason you start an entity, and this is particularly important if you have anyone else working with you. If you've got a partner, it's essential. If you've got employees and contracts, it's important as well. But an entity allows you to have what I'm going to refer to a lot in this program called deal certainty, which is to say it allows you to come up with an agreement with people that is done through a separate legal entity so that everybody understands, who gets what, who does what, that type of thing. We're going to talk a lot about that today, so I don't want to dwell on it too much. The last thing that's not necessarily a legally important thing, but is important nonetheless, is that having a separate business entity provides you with legitimacy. Other people don't want to do business with just a sole proprietor. And when I say a sole proprietor, I just mean a person who's working by themselves without an entity set up to do business through. People like to see that you've taken the steps to become a legitimate business and an entity. It seems like you've got your affairs in order. And so the question is, when do you form that entity? If you are just getting started, if you're sitting in your coffee room one day and an idea comes into your head, it's not time to form an entity yet, right? You need to form an entity as soon as you start doing business. And if you work alone, what that means is once you start having customers, once you start generating revenue, you need to get that business entity in place, and you can probably hold off on doing it until you're to that point. Now, if you're going to have partners, I take back what I said on the coffee room discussion. The moment you come up with an idea with your buddy in the coffee room and you say, let's go do this thing, that's the time to go ahead and get this thing going, right? Set up that entity, go ahead and get your documents in place, define your deal with your partner. It's going to save you an enormous amount of headache down the road. So when you're ready to form your entity, it's important that you pick the right type of entity, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But before we go into that discussion, I want to give you a little more information about liability protection and what a separate entity does and does not protect you from. As a general matter, the owners, the officers, the managers, the directors, the stockholders, whatever it is for your entity, the owners and operators of your business are generally protected from your business's debts and liabilities. Now, what does that include? That typically will include credit cards, okay? Let's say your business racks up some credit card debt and the business can't pay it and the business goes under. Well, you're not going to be personally liable for credit cards. You're not going to be liable for loans taken out in the name of your business unless you personally guarantee the loan, which is going to happen a lot of the times. More importantly, when you have a separate business entity, you're not liable for the acts of your employees. And you're also not liable for the acts of your partners and the other owners of your company. In other words, the business is going to be liable for those actions, but you are not personally going to be liable for your actions. And so that's what I say when I mean that you have liability protection. Now, a couple of important caveats to that. First of all, in order for that protection to stay in place, you have to treat your entity as a separate entity. You can't just set up an LLC and not put money in a new bank account for it and just treat it as your own personal piggy bank. You've got to go through the steps, use the formalities, sign documents in the name of the company, open bank accounts in the name of the company, and do your business through the company. If you don't do those things, you run the risk of waiving this very important liability protection that you have. So again, you want to sign documents in the entity's name. You want to open bank accounts in the entity's name. You want to treat this as a separate business from yourself. Now, the last thing that's very important is no entity, no business structure, nothing you do can protect you from liability for your own personal actions. And what I mean by that is, if you're in your business and a customer walks in and is doing business with you and you rob them blind, you're liable for that action, right? You can't avoid liability through an entity. And so a more common situation is if you are driving somewhere, for example, on company business, right? You're doing your job and you're working in the line of your work, but you get into a car wreck, okay? Well, your business is probably liable because you got into an accident while you were working. But you're also personally liable because it was you that did the thing that they're trying to hold you liable for. And so while it's great to have liability protection because it shields you from the actions of others and it shields you from your company's debts, just remember that there's nothing that any lawyer can do to protect you from your own personal wrongdoing. Off my soapbox, next slide. This is just an example of how you want to treat your entity as separately. When you sign documents, you need to sign on behalf of the entity. You don't want to sign a document just with your name. When you sign a document like this, it means that you personally are agreeing to the terms of whatever document it is you signed. When you sign a document like this, it means that your company, not you, is agreeing to the terms of that document. Just a little side note.